Ryan always believed that when someone you love says they're hurting, you show up for them. So when Emily told him she was going through a mental breakdown and needed space, he didn't question it. He packed a small bag, moved into his brother's place, and promised to give her all the time she needed. But only a few days later, something felt wrong. Emily, who claimed she needed silence and solitude, suddenly became very active online. Photos of fancy dinners, champagne glasses, dimly lit restaurants, none of which looked like the life of someone trying to heal. And the worst part wasn't the locations. It was the men sitting across from her in every picture. Different faces, different nights, different smiles. Ryan stared at his phone, feeling his stomach drop as the truth slowly tightened around him. Ryan didn't want to believe what he was seeing, but the more he looked, the more impossible it became to ignore. At first, he thought maybe he was overthinking it. Maybe Emily was posting old pictures, or maybe these were work events she forgot to mention. But the timestamps told a different story. Every night since he left the apartment, she had been out. Not just out, dressed up, glowing, laughing in a way she hadn't laughed with him for months. He zoomed into one photo, noticing the reflection in the restaurant's mirrored wall. There was a man, leaning close to her, smiling like they were sharing an inside joke. Ryan's heart sank, but he forced himself to stay calm. He scrolled further. More photos. Another man. Another night. Another caption about self-care and healing energy. It was like watching someone live a second life he had never been invited into. He checked the dates again, hoping he was wrong. But the truth was relentless. While he had been sleeping on an air mattress at his brother's house, trying to give Emily the space she said she needed, she had been winning and dining her way across the city. He told himself not to jump to conclusions, yet every news story chipped away at the version of Emily he thought he knew. The final blow came at work. Ryan was pouring himself a cup of coffee when his coworker, Mark, approached with a raised eyebrow. "Dude, isn't this your girlfriend?" Mark asked, turning his phone toward him. Ryan's stomach twisted before he even saw the screen. It was Emily, clear as day, sitting at a candlelit table in a black dress Ryan had bought her for their anniversary. Across from her was a man in a suit, holding her hand over the table like they had known each other for years. Ryan felt the room tilt for a moment. Mark kept talking, something about how he thought Ryan and Emily were still together, but Ryan barely heard any of it. His mind was buzzing with 100 questions that all led to the same painful realization. Emily wasn't struggling with her mental health. She wasn't asking for space to recover. She was easing her way into a new life and keeping Ryan on standby as a backup plan. That night, Ryan sat alone in his brother's guest room, scrolling through Emily's feed again and again. He replayed every message she had sent him over the last week. The sudden coldness, the vague excuses, the emotional distance she couldn't quite explain. It all made sense now, and the clarity burned. He felt anger, hurt, embarrassment, and disbelief twisting together until he could barely breathe. But beneath all of that was something sharper. A need to know the full truth. A need to stop being the last person in the room who didn't understand what was happening. Ryan stared at Emily's profile picture one last time before locking his phone. Whatever this was, it wasn't going to end with him quietly waiting in the shadows. Ryan knew he needed clarity, but he also knew that confronting Emily directly would only lead to another performance, another web of excuses, tears, or accusations that somehow made everything his fault. She was good at twisting things. Too good. So instead, he decided to approach the truth from a different angle, one she would never see coming. Late that night, sitting on the edge of the guest bed with only a dim lamp lighting the room, Ryan opened a new dating app account. He hesitated for a moment before typing the name Ethan. It felt ridiculous, like something out of a TV show, but he pushed through the discomfort. He uploaded a few photos he found online, Handsome enough to attract attention, but not famous enough to raise suspicion. He filled out a short bio, kept it vague but appealing. Then he hit save and let the profile go live. Within minutes, his screen lit up with likes and matches. He scrolled half-heartedly until a familiar face froze him in place. Emily. Her smile was wide. Her hair perfectly styled. She looked vibrant, almost radiant, like she had shed every ounce of stress she claimed to be drowning in. And right there on her profile, under relationship status, was a single word that made Ryan's pulse jump. Single. He swallowed hard. It was one thing to suspect betrayal. It was another to see her announce it to strangers while still texting him that she needed time to heal. Against every emotion raging inside him, Ryan swiped right. It took less than 5 seconds. It's a match. The notification stung like a slap. He stared at it, feeling a mix of anger and disbelief wash over him. Before he could even process the moment, a message popped up. From Emily. Hey Ethan, I like your vibe, wanna chat? Ryan felt his jaw tighten. He typed back slowly, careful not to sound too eager. Sure, what are you looking for? Her reply came instantly, as if she had been waiting all day. Something fun. I just got out of a relationship that wasn't working. I'm ready to meet someone new. Ryan leaned back, exhaling sharply. She hadn't technically broken up with him. Not officially. She had simply placed him on pause while she shopped for replacements. They exchanged a few more messages, her flirting, him pretending. Emily suggested they meet in person. Not sometime next week. Not casually if they both had time. But tomorrow night. At a fancy restaurant. She even recommended a bottle of wine they could share. Ryan stared at the screen, his heartbeat heavy and erratic. Every part of him wanted to scream, to call her out right then and there. But another part, the part that needed closure, the part that needed undeniable proof, knew this was his moment. He agreed to the date as Ethan. Then he opened a separate tab to book himself a table at the same restaurant, same time. Tomorrow, the truth wouldn't just reveal itself. He would walk straight into it. Ryan arrived at the restaurant 15 minutes early, his pulse thudding in his ears as he checked in for his reservation. The hostess led him to a small table tucked in the corner, giving him the perfect view of the entrance without appearing suspicious. He sat down, pretending to look over the menu, though his eyes kept drifting toward the door. Every time a woman walked in, his breath caught for a half-second. Then, at exactly 7:00 p.m., Emily appeared. She stepped inside wearing the same dress he'd seen her flaunt on her dating profile, her hair done in soft curls, her lips painted a shade of red she only wore for special occasions. Not once had she dressed like this during the weeks she claimed to be mentally exhausted. Ryan watched her scan the room, her face lighting up with the anticipation of meeting her mysterious Ethan. She didn't see him. Not yet. She walked confidently to the table she had reserved, sat down, and pulled out her phone. Ryan could picture the message she was typing. Probably something flirtatious. Probably something she had once said to him. He let her sit there for a full minute before he stood and walked across the room. His footsteps felt heavier with each step, like he was marching toward a version of his life that was about to break permanently. When he reached her table, Emily didn't look up at first. She was too busy checking her lipstick and her phone's camera. Waiting for someone, Ryan asked, keeping his voice steady. Emily froze. Her head jerked up, eyes wide with shock, the color draining from her face in an instant. Ryan, what are you doing here? He sat down in the chair across from her without asking. Funny, he said. I was going to ask you the same thing. Emily blinked rapidly, then forced a shaky laugh. This is insane. Are you following me? This is exactly why I needed space. You're suffocating me. Ryan stared at her, stunned by how quickly she flipped the blame. I'm suffocating you, he repeated. You told me you needed time to recover. And meanwhile, you're here meeting random men from dating apps. Her jaw tightened. You wouldn't understand. I just needed options. The word hit him harder than any accusation she'd thrown at him. Options. Like relationships were shoes she could try on and return if they didn't fit. So you kept me on hold, Ryan said quietly, while you shopped around for someone better. Emily looked away, folding her napkin with trembling fingers. I didn't mean for it to be like this, she whispered. I just didn't want to be alone if things with you didn't work out. Ryan felt a cold clarity wash over him. This wasn't confusion. This wasn't a mistake. It was selfishness wrapped in excuses. He stood, pushing his chair back slowly. You already made your choice, he said. And now I'm making mine. Emily reached out to grab his arm, but he stepped back. For the first time, he saw her panic, not because she loved him, but because she was losing control. He walked away without looking back, leaving her sitting alone at a table meant for Ethan. And for the first time in weeks, he felt the truth settle quietly, painfully, but firmly into place. The life he thought he had with her was gone. And now at least he knew it. Ryan expected the breakup to be messy, but he didn't expect it to turn into a full-blown war the moment he walked back into their apartment. He had thought confronting Emily would give her the push to pack her things and leave quietly. Instead, she acted like nothing had happened. She claimed she needed more time, claimed she had nowhere else to go, and claimed that Ryan was being unreasonable for wanting distance now that he was finally calm. He reminded her they had agreed to split. She shrugged, saying she didn't agree to move out. The first real shock came 2 days later when Ryan tried to unlock the door after work and realized his key no longer fit. Emily had changed the locks without telling him. He knocked until she opened the door with a bored expression, leaning against the frame like she was doing him a favor. This is still my place too, he said, trying not to lose his temper. She rolled her eyes. I just needed security. You've been unpredictable. He almost laughed at the absurdity of it. He was sleeping on his brother's couch for her comfort, and she was the one calling him unpredictable. Once inside, he noticed some of his things were missing. A pair of sneakers, his headphones, a few books. When he asked, she shrugged again. Maybe you misplaced them. That night, she blasted music past midnight, singing loudly with her friends who had shown up uninvited. Ryan asked her to keep it down. She smirked and turned the volume higher. The following evening, another man appeared in the apartment. Tall, well-dressed, smelling like cologne that cost more than Ryan's entire outfit. Emily giggled as she led him down the hallway. Ryan felt something inside him snap, not jealousy, but disbelief at how boldly cruel she was being. When he confronted her later, she brushed him off. I said I wasn't ready to move, she said. But if you want me out, it'll cost you. $5,000 should cover relocation and emotional distress. Ryan stared at her in silence, stunned by how calmly she named her price, like she was negotiating a business deal and not extorting her ex-boyfriend. She wasn't done. Over the next few days, she posted cryptic messages on social media implying Ryan was controlling, toxic, and refusing to let her heal. Friends started messaging him, confused by what they were seeing. Emily acted even colder at home. She used his expensive skincare, wore his shirts, cooked meals using the groceries he paid for, and left the kitchen looking like a hurricane had passed through. Every time Ryan entered a room, she smirked like she enjoyed watching him fall apart. Then came the night she loudly brought another guy home again. Ryan listened from the hallway, gripping the railing, feeling sick to his stomach, not because she'd moved on, but because she was using intimacy as a weapon. She wanted to push him until he snapped. She wanted him angry so she could paint him as the villain. But he didn't explode. He didn't break anything. He didn't raise a hand or voice. He simply looked at her with a kind of exhausted clarity. Emily wasn't trying to win. She was trying to destroy. And now Ryan understood. He could no longer play by her rules if he wanted this nightmare to end. Ryan realized that reasoning with Emily was pointless. Every conversation twisted into an argument he never started and could never win. She had built herself a role where she was the victim and he was the unstable ex, and she clung to that narrative like it was oxygen. So Ryan stopped appealing to her emotions and began focusing on facts, cold, undeniable facts she couldn't manipulate. The turning point came one afternoon when Emily cornered him in the kitchen, demanding again that he pay her $5,000 to move out. She spoke like it was a perfectly normal request, like he owed her that money for the stress she claimed he caused. Ryan didn't raise his voice. He didn't argue. He simply looked at her and said, "I still have the pictures you sent me, the private ones." Emily froze mid-sentence, her expression collapsing into something close to terror. Ryan didn't threaten her. He didn't say he would share them or use them. He made it clear he would never do that. But the reminder alone was enough. Her public image was everything to her. Her reputation at work, her curated online persona, her obsession with appearing flawless. She backed away from him, like the implication alone had scorched her. For the first time since this nightmare began, the facade cracked. She muttered that she would move out in 2 weeks, but her voice shook with a panic she tried to hide. Ryan thought that meant things would finally calm down. He was wrong. In the days that followed, Emily became even more disruptive, as if trying to punish him for standing up to her. She slammed cabinets, left the stove on, and accidentally broke one of his favorite mugs. When he returned from work one evening, he found his sweaters missing from the closet. Later, he discovered she had given them to her friends because they were cute. She invited people over constantly, turning the apartment into a chaotic revolving door. Sometimes 3 or 4 of her friends lounged on the couch, scrolling on their phones, dropping crumbs everywhere, acting like they owned the place. And then there were the men. Different ones. Different nights. Emily made sure Ryan saw them, heard them, and understood exactly what message she was sending. She wanted him uncomfortable. She wanted him cornered. She wanted a reaction she could weaponize. But Ryan stayed quiet. He documented everything. The noise, the mess, the people entering at odd hours, the damaged items, the dates and times. He took photos, videos, screenshots of her posts. He didn't plan to use them unless he had no choice, but he needed proof. Proof that he wasn't the monster she was trying to make him out to be. Emily noticed he wasn't breaking like she expected. So she escalated. One night she walked past him in the hallway and whispered, "You think you can threaten me? Just wait." Her tone was cold enough to raise the hairs on his arms. But instead of fear, Ryan felt something else, resolve. He was done being bullied in his own home. He was done walking on eggshells to protect someone who took pleasure in watching him unravel. He had the evidence. He had the truth. And he was ready for whatever came next, even if Emily was. Emily's final move came on a quiet Tuesday morning, just when Ryan thought the storm might be fatting. He woke up to a series of emails forwarded from the property manager, each one more unbelievable than the last. Emily had written a long, dramatic message accusing Ryan of harassment, emotional abuse, and creating an unsafe living environment. She painted herself as a terrified woman desperate for protection and insisted the landlord remove Ryan from the lease immediately. Ryan sat on the couch reading every line, his heartbeat steady, not because he wasn't shocked, but because he recognized her pattern. This was her last attempt to regain control. If she couldn't intimidate him emotionally, she would try legally. He opened his laptop and drafted a calm, clear response with attachments. Screenshots of her bringing multiple strangers into the apartment. Photos of the changed locks. A video of her screaming at him at 2 a.m. A screenshot of her social media post bragging about living her best life, while the dead weight is gone. He didn't embellish anything. He didn't attack her. He simply presented facts. 2 hours later, his phone rang. It was the landlord. Her tone was sympathetic but firm, and Ryan immediately sensed she had already pieced everything together. She told him she had reviewed both sides of the situation and that, without question, Emily's behavior violated the lease multiple times. Changing the locks without permission, bringing overnight guests repeatedly, creating disturbances, harassment through email. The landlord explained that if Emily continued, they could file for eviction against her specifically. And that eviction would appear on her rental record permanently. Ryan didn't smile. He didn't gloat. He just exhaled, feeling something heavy loosen in his chest. When Emily got home that evening, she didn't stomp around or slam doors like usual. Instead, she walked inside quietly, her face pale and eyes darting nervously. She had spoken to the landlord, and she understood the consequences. For the first time since all of this began, she looked genuinely scared, not because of Ryan, but because she had finally crossed a line she couldn't talk her way out of. She didn't say a word to him. Not that night. Not the next morning. But early the following afternoon, Ryan heard the sound of boxes sliding across the floor. Closet doors opening and closing. The front door creaking with each trip to her car. Emily was packing. Not slowly or defiantly, but with frantic, silent urgency. In 36 hours, she was gone. Her perfume no longer lingered in the hallway. Her shoes no longer cluttered the entryway. Her laughter, her shouting, her arguments gone. But she didn't leave without one last petty act. When Ryan flipped the light switch in the living room, nothing happened. Then the bedroom. Then the kitchen. Every light in the apartment was dead. Emily had unscrewed all the bulbs and taken them with her. Not to sell. Not to use. Just to spite him. Ryan stood in the dim apartment for a moment, letting the silence settle. It wasn't peaceful yet, not fully. But it was his again. And for the first time in months, the darkness felt like something he could easily fix. Just buy new bulbs. Just start over. And he would. After Emily left, the apartment felt strangely hollow, but undeniably lighter. Ryan spent the next weekend cleaning every corner, tossing out the remnants of her chaos, and replacing the bulbs she had taken in her final act of spite. Each new light he screwed and felt like reclaiming a piece of his life. He eventually found a new roommate, someone calm, respectful, and easy to be around. The apartment slowly transformed from a battleground into a place he actually looked forward to coming home to. He blocked Emily everywhere, not out of anger, but out of necessity. He stopped checking her social media, stopped wondering what she was doing, stopped letting her shadow stretch into his new days. He heard through mutual acquaintances that she was dating someone wealthy now, posting curated pictures of expensive dinners and weekend trips, as if the world needed to believe she had upgraded. But Ryan no longer cared. His peace was worth more than her narrative. As weeks passed, he found clarity instead of bitterness. He realized he had learned more from the chaos than he ever wanted to. He learned to trust his instincts, to read the signs, to understand contracts, and to protect his space. But most of all, he learned that the best revenge was never retaliation. It was simply living well without her.